Good day, dear viewers, and welcome to another episode of In Conversation. My name is Bongani, and today I'm joined by Prof. Ylva Rodny-Gumede, the Senior Director for Internationalisation. I had to get that word right because I wish to travel abroad. So the word is the beginning of it all. Prof, welcome to the show.
Thank you very, very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's fantastic, fantastic. Prof, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to becoming the Senior Director of Internationalisation?
Absolutely. So, firstly, I've been at UJ since 2009, which is a long time. I sometimes joke and say that I'm the kind of, I'm as part of the furniture now, the oldest one around in the sort of management group. No, I'm not really, We have a vice chancellor actually who's been at the university from the get-go, so to speak.
Yes.
But no, so I came to the university in 2009. I started my journey at UJ as a lecturer. I just gotten my PhD from SOAS in London. We were actually out of the country, my husband and I, with 3 little boys for almost 4 years. And then came back. And then I was in humanities. I have my professorship in the humanities and in communication studies and journalism, as you know.
Yes.
And I went from a lecturer to a full professor and was then asked by a former vice-chancellor, Prof. Chilitsi Mawala, if I wanted to come into the international office, and there was a vacancy for this position, and I applied, and the rest is history, as they say.
And even your journey does speak to international, because you were abroad and then came back to South Africa, which actually says it all. So what have been your roles and responsibilities for this particular role, being the Senior Director of Internationalisation?
So I think that's a very good question, and you allude to it as well. So, I have a lot of international experience. Firstly, I am from Sweden originally, but married to a South African, hence the surname. But I started actually when I studied, before I even started my first year of my undergraduate, I went abroad. I went to France to study. And then I studied in England, I studied in Holland, I studied in the UK, as you know. I've studied in South Africa. I have a second MA. My first MA is from Holland. And then I have, and the UK actually, and then I have a second MA from South Africa as well. So I've been back and forth, and then before actually going into the academy, I was a journalist, and I worked for many, many years on the Balkans as a foreign correspondent. So, you can see I have a lot of international experience.
I can tell, and I heard from the get-go that, wow, you are international yourself. So therefore, all the links with the international world or the global world, you are fit for this role. So in a University of Johannesburg perspective, how does internationalization align with the overall mission of the institution?
It's interesting, and I think that we are unique and uniquely positioned as the University of Johannesburg because we're really embedding internationalization into everything that we do. And we are currently working on a new strategic plan going forward to 2035, or that will take us towards 2035. And actually central to that strategic mission and vision and the strategy of the university is internationalization. And of course, from the perspective of a division such as the Division for Internationalisation, we are truly appreciative of that. But I think it also talks to a changing world, where the University of Johannesburg is really realizing that if we want to be able to change not only our own locality and the region, the continent, but the world beyond us and the lives of our students and staff, we need to have that global, truly, truly global outlook. And if we look at the problems of today, and many of the wicked problems of today as well, they're of course global and begs global solutions and global engagements and conversations.
True, indeed. And that being said, Prof, how does the University of Johannesburg attract international students, and how does it support the students when they are here?
So there are many things that we do. So of course, the drives that we do out of this particular division, or the Division for Internationalisation, is to do frequent recruitment drives. We We work with partners and different online and offline platforms in various locations to recruit students and matric students from the continent and globally as well, of course. And a lot of recruitment, and because of a lot of our students come from neighboring countries in Southern Africa, of course, and our sister countries, most immediate sister countries. So those are our markets, if you wish, that we are very active in talking to students and guiding them through the process of applying to the university, what they can apply for, all the choices. And of course, we work also with governments and bursary funds in these various countries to be able to support our students. So that's the kind of recruitment process. And as it comes to postgraduate students, we work very closely with our faculties to recruit, help them and assist them in recruiting postgraduate students, and of course our postgraduate school here at the university as well. So all of this is done then to recruit the students, to get them into the system. But once they come to the university, of course, it's a completely new world for them, hey? And as an international student, it's often quite bewildering to come, and particularly as an undergraduate student, hey, into a new environment, a new country, and so on. So we're very clear on providing them with all the necessary information that they need, and that of course starts very early, and that includes the visa process, the study visa process, and so on, and all the financial issues around it. But once they arrive, we're very clear on wanting to help them with accommodation. We're very clear on giving them orientation programs and introductions to the university, and then we work closely with the faculties as well, of course, because that can be very faculty or degree specific as well. But we're here, and you've seen our offices now. We're sitting in my office, but you've seen all the people that we have on the ground floor as well that are here to, front of house to assist the students with various queries and so on. And we really want to be a one-stop shop for our students, that they know that they can come to us with the big and the small. And I think that beyond all of those practical things, it's often so that as an international student, you just want someone to be able to guide you on other things as well, So often students pop in and they just, come in and they want to say hi, or they want to ask some questions, or just want to sit down and chat to someone for a bit. And, we try to help them as much as possible and just be there for our students, basically.
And true, me being here at the International House, I sense that feeling of positivity and enriching experiences for students. So, from the when I arrived from the offices there at the reception was just welcoming. So I can also imagine with an international student, the culture shock and other things, but humanity also can make you feel welcome, and then you get more information so that you can also adapt. And that was actually my following question. So now, in what ways has the university forged partnership and collaborations with other universities? And with that being said, how does that partnership help both the students and the faculties in a sense?
So we do a lot. We are an extremely busy division in that sense. So just to maybe also take you back one step is that in the division we have a whole range of different portfolios that deal with different things. So we just talked a little bit about the student portfolio, for example, which is only our full degree students, and that's one big part of what we do. And then, of course, we have all the mobility students as well, short-term students that come in for various programs and shorter stays from various countries in the world, and all our outgoing students as well, which I could talk to for, about hours of all the programs that we run there, and I'll come back to that in a minute as well. But then, of course, it's all the research partnerships and collaborations, which include then the student exchanges, the staff exchanges, and researcher exchanges, and research exchange and research collaborations, including supervision and joint degrees, for example, with other universities. So I think that we have about 180 plus partnerships with different universities around the world. And we have a truly global footprint. And we even have research going on Antarctica, which I think is really, really interesting. Hey, so I think that's tells you something about the scope of what we do. But of course, these partnerships are in various levels and to various degrees and in various faculties and so on. And some of the partnerships that we have are overarching partnerships where we have partnerships with, as a university, which are an institutional agreement with another university. And they're often very broad. We have everything then, as I say, from exchanges of students to staff to researcher engagements and collaborations. And also a lot of networks, big networks that we belong to, such as the Universitas 21 network, for example, of highly research-intensive universities all over the world. But then there are also faculty agreements, and there are researcher agreements where you can have researchers within, law, for example, collaborating with the law faculty at another university somewhere else in the world, or a faculty-to-faculty agreement, and so on. So they are numerous and various. And then, of course, we are very keen on pushing for Pan-African partnerships. And we do that, and we have many collaborations on the continent and with different universities on the continent, and also sort of the wider global south. And those are really, really important to us.
Awesome. Is the Africa by Bus also part of internationalization?
Yes. So I'm glad you asked about that. So one of our big flagship programs over the years have been what we call our Africa/Innovation by Bus programs. And these are really what, exactly what they sound like. So to get our students to experience their own locality and the continent that we form part of, instead of just sort of flying over it as many people do, we said, why don't we have these bus programs? We take our students and visit neighboring countries. And these are faculty-led programs. So we could have an engineering bus going to a dam project in Lesotho, for example, or we have even had what we call sort of, we're partially Airbus, where we've had to fly students some part of the way. For example, we've had a humanities program going to Uganda and so on. But we have buses going to Namibia, to Mozambique, actually all over. And the new iteration of the Africa by Bus program, and as I say, the idea with the Africa by Bus or then Innovation by Bus, we want the students to just engage with problems and, find solutions to common problems and so on, and collaborate with other universities and students from other universities on these bus trips. But the idea is to understand and get to see, being immersed in another country, in another culture. So the newest iteration of the program that we're rolling out this coming November is what we call China by Train, which is a similar, but we are taking students to China, taking them by train from Beijing to Hong Kong.
Interesting. Wow. Because I was fortunate last year to go to Botswana with the same project, and it was really an amazing experience to see how other filmmakers operate that side, and also the faculty at large. It was really engaging, and I can attest myself that your department is the one.
Lovely, lovely.
I really loved it. So, Prof, with this happening now, so there's, of course, increasing competition in the global education market.
Yeah.
What are we doing different to attract the most talented international students to our institution?
For me, that's the crux of the matter, really. And I think that, both as a communication scholar, but also, in the portfolio that I'm in, and driving this division and driving the internationalization or global engagement strategy, as we like to call it, of the university, it's really important that we understand those changing dynamics. So we are faced with increased global competition, absolutely. And we are also, of course, part of chasing after the global rankings alongside a lot of other, universities around the world. And these are really important aspects and metrics for us in terms of then recruitment of the best talented students, the best talented staff, etc., going after the research funding and the big research partnerships and other third stream income, for example. So how we brand ourselves and market ourselves and the standing that we have does count enormously. I think it's really interesting, the journey that UJ has done. And we know that how we have climbed not only the global rankings, but the rankings on the continent and in South Africa itself. And we know with the research rankings now, for example, So we are really, we're number one, we're on top, hey? And I think that's a position that we don't take lightly. And we know that has taken a lot of hard work. So we have both our research infrastructure, we have both our researchers. I think we have fantastic programs as a university in supporting young and upcoming academics, for example. We're really clear on our transformation agenda, and I think all of those things shows our commitment to making an impact, you know, and because that filters down to our students and how we interact with our students as well, and how our research can be made to have impact and be sort of changeful and impactful in the world. And that's also our new Vice Chancellor, Prof. Impedi's real mission. You know, he says that, you know, everything we need to do need to have societal impact. And I think that's really, that's remarkable, and that's something that we don't take lightly. That's what we want to do and what we do as a university. And I think that, like no other university, because we are one of the largest residential universities in South Africa, and the student base that we have that is to a huge extent than what we call first generation university goers, which means that no one else in the family previously have a university degree. That in and of itself makes us stand apart globally, I think. And we see how, you know, people are taking heed, looking at us, saying, what are you doing, you know, how are you empowering your students, you know? And I think that a lot of the Ivory League universities, you know, they look towards that because they realize that that ivory tower, that's no longer, you know, you can't, you know, you can't isolate yourself like that, you know, the world has changed. And that's our competitive edge, I would say, in that global, you know, landscape as a university.
And that is true. It sounds like greatness attracting greatness, because the more good that we do, whoever associates themselves with the institution also does greatness because
Absolutely.
of the energy
Yeah.
and everything. And now, since that we are post-COVID, of course, with greatness, there are challenges that may come along the way. What are some of the challenges that you have experienced within your division, in a sense?
It's an interesting thing. So universities around the world, of course, were, you know, faced by the COVID pandemic, and a lot of things had to change very quickly. I think globally universities, you know, heeded this really, really well. And I think that all universities to some degree would say, you know, we did best. We managed this better than others. I think more or less we did really well, all of us. And as the University of Johannesburg, I think we managed that transition excellently. And given that we have students who come from lower income households, we needed to make sure that we could really provide top-level services to our students, including sending out devices to our students in, you know, at home or whatever, wherever they were, because many couldn't, you know, we couldn't have them on campus, for example, you know. So all of this has to change, and of course then it was adapting our teaching for online purposes and so on. That was the university as such. For the broader sort of internationalization project or global engagement project, I would say that actually, in some ways, we did better than before. And that is something that we mustn't forget. We mustn't lose track of but now when we're sort of finding hybrid models, because moving to that online model meant that we could have many more conversations with many more partners around the world. We could bring larger cohorts of students, our own as well as students from partner universities, into online platforms where they could meet. It's not the same thing as, you know, sending students out for exchanges and so on, of course, but it meant that broader conversations could be had with many more students, including many more staff, many more researchers. And that was fantastic, and finding ways of maintaining that while also then having these kind of in-person engagements. That's now what we were working towards. And I think that it has really opened up a bigger world. I'm really truly appreciative of, and I'm not saying that COVID was good on any conceivable level. It was a tragedy, and it has repercussions for so many people around the world. But I think keeping some of the lessons learned and knowing how to do that better, that's what we want to do. You know, we want to live in a big world, and a big world where we understand that we are connected.
Indeed, Prof. And like great stories have came out. I think we've survived the pandemic, and through the measures that you have mentioned and hinted at, some, because speaking to like about international students, there are some who are still in their respective countries, but they still managed to carry through the course and be able to graduate, which was excellent. from the side
Yeah.
of the institution. So, are there any success stories of international students who have graduated from the University of Johannesburg and then went out to achieve greater heights that you know?
So I think that firstly, to start to say that every single student that graduates, local as well as international, is a success story. And I think that's what we really pride ourselves on as a university as well, because it comes at a price, you know, and we know that for both local as well as international students, the cost of studying, you know, and the thresholds of access are massive. So as our Vice-Chancellor, Prof. Mpedi, always says, we pride ourselves on both access and excellence. And I think that that's something truly unique, and that's, you know, I talked about that as our competitive edge. But if we then look at our international students, you know, they also often come from low to middle income households, and you can't, you know, you won't get any state subsidies for, you know, for you know, you're not part of the NNS, for example, as an international student. So you're either self-funded or you have a bursary from your government or other funding sources. So, you know, to make it through and to make it to that point of having, you know, coming to study somewhere else and being brave enough of taking those steps, I think is something in and of itself. So once you graduate, you are a success already, you know. But there are many success stories, and I think that when we look at our international students who then become our international alumni, I often meet them when we're traveling. We try really to reach out to our international alumni whenever we are visiting partners abroad and so on. And to seeing them, you know, in government positions or whatever, you know, it's an amazing thing, you know. And I think this idea of being able to gain a degree somewhere else and taking that back home or to another locality or maybe even stay in South Africa is something truly unique, and that diversity enriches, you know, the world that we live in to a huge extent, eh? Or we can't, you know, we wouldn't be here without it, you know. We're all migrants in one way or the other, you know.
Yes, Prof. That is indeed. I'm really excited to hear that we do have so many success stories, and saying that the average kids are striving, them just obtaining that degree, it means a lot for the university. It really touches my heart. Is there anything you wish to add in this conversation?
Oh, there's so many things. And I think that, you know, I mean, firstly, what I would really like to emphasize is that what we want to do is, of course, we want to bring international students and international staff into our university for that kind of enrichment of our own environment. But importantly, what we do as a division as well and as a university, we want to ensure that our students here, our South African national students, get an international experience and an international exposure. And it's not only about physical encounters with the other. It's, you know, whether you have, you know, foreign students in class that you interact with, or you are lucky to go on an exchange program abroad, which we're really promoting and trying to, you know, facilitate as much as possible. But facilitating other, you know, conversations about the world that we live in, that's also part of our global engagement strategy. So we try to make sure that every single student who enters our university has some kind of an international or global exposure and understands the world that we live in and the interdependence of the world. So that's basically what we're all about, you know. And we want students to come, reach out, and we want to engage and try to engage as many as our students, if not everyone, at this university to have that kind of experience.
My heart just keeps leaping with joy because I love international. I think I still wish to travel. So if anyone is watching who's similar to my aspirations, this is your episode. Trust me. Well, Prof, we really appreciate you for making time, and we wish you all the best in the good work that you've been doing already.
Thank you. And we say thank you. Merci d'atteindre Siaong.
International languages. Well, there you have it, dear viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in this episode. We did speak. We were having a conversation with Prof. Ylva Rodny-Gumede, and my name is Bongani. We're calling it an episode.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.